What's up, guys? Happy Monday. I recorded a video of today's lesson so you guys won't fall behind even though I'm not here today. So we're going to go on business as usual. And I think you guys finished up your old warm-up sheet. If I'm wrong about that, then ignore that part. But if you need a new warm-up sheet, turn in the old one and grab a new one. And you should also have the notes called Measures of Variability. Alright, let's look at the Monday warm-up. It says Sutton takes a weekly spelling test. Her test grades for the first 5 weeks of school are shown below. Find the mean, median, and mode of her grades. So if anybody was not here on Thursday or Friday, you can find these notes in the Thursday folder on the back wall. So definitely grab those. And take a look and remind yourself how to find mean, median, and mode. And then you can pause this video for a couple minutes until everybody has a chance to work it out. Alright, so if you guys are ready to check this, let's start with the mean. Remember, mean is just another word for average. Don't mind my handwriting, I'm trying to write with the mouse. This is not my best. Alright, so to find the average, we first need to add the numbers together. I got 445. And then we got to divide by 5 because there are 5 numbers. And that gives me an average of 89. Which that checks out because if you look at the scores, some of them are lower than that, some of them are higher than that. It makes sense. Alright, next we need to find the median. If you think about that word, that is asking you to find the middle of the data set. But the important first step here is to put the numbers in order before you find the middle. So I'm going to go least to greatest. We got 76, 89, another 89. We got 93. And 98. And then we just cross off the outside numbers until we get to the middle. That was not a great line. Okay, 1, 2, and 3 in the middle. Interesting, we got a mean of 89 and a median of 89. And last thing we need to find is the mode, the number that shows up the most often. Oh wow, look at that. Mode is also 89 because there are 2 89s. That's more than any other number. That doesn't happen very often where all 3 of these are the same number. Alright, so mean is the average, median's the middle, mode shows up the most often. Alright, so we are going to move on. Let's see, I'm not sure why it didn't erase that part. I think I might have to erase it by hand. Alright, so we are going to look at the Seattle Seahawks data again from yesterday. So we looked at the points per game that they scored. Alright, so remember, we found the mean, we said they scored 28 points per game. We found the median, which was the middle, was 29. We found the mode, 31, showed up the most often. And today we're going to practice finding something called the range. So maybe you've heard of it before, maybe not, but it's pretty simple. The range is basically the largest number minus the smallest number. So they scored 44 points, that was the highest total that they had, and 7 was the lowest total, so 44 minus 7 would be 37. That would be the range. So that's another good way to summarize this data. Alright, so look at these temperatures. These were from last March. It shows you the high and the low temperature for Tuesday and the high and the low temperature for Thursday. So, mental math this. Think about what would the range be for Tuesday? If you said 17, oh, my bad, I mental math that wrong. If you said 27, you are correct. 89 minus 62. All right, now think about what the range would be for Thursday. That's pretty simple. The range for Thursday would be 10, 72 minus 62. So think about which of those days had a bigger range. That would be Tuesday, right? If you look at, if you just think about it, it makes sense. But also, if you look at the graph, it's a wider gap. The temperature was pretty hot and then it got pretty cool. Whereas Thursday, it had a smaller range. It stayed within 10 degrees throughout the entire day. All right, so we are going to jump over to the notes and fill out this first part. So, measures of variability. A measure of variability is a way of describing how spread out the data is. So, for example, on Tuesday, the temperatures were very spread out, and on Thursday, the temperatures were not so spread out. All right, so the range of a data set can be found by subtracting the smallest number from the biggest number. And the example says, the list below shows the number of pages in various novels. What is the range of the data? All right, so we got to pick out the biggest number, which looks like 396, minus the smallest number, 241. And there you go. The range was 155. That's the difference. So, pretty simple. All right, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. We're going to add some more steps here. So let me show you how to find interquartile range. I'm going to use the pen tool again. All right, so let's say we have a very simple data set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What we're going to do first is we are going to find the median. So if we cross them off till we get to the middle, you can see the median would be 4. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take the lower half of the data, so we're going to take these three numbers and find the middle of those, which would be 2. And then we're going to take the upper half of the data and find the middle of those, which would be 6. So basically, the 2 is called quartile 1. That's the median of the lower half of the data. You can just say Q1. The 4 would be called Q2. That's the median of the entire data set. And the 6 would be called Q3. That's the median of the upper half. So in order to find the interquartile range, that's just the difference between Q3 and Q1. So that would be 6 minus 2, which equals 4. And you can call it the IQR. You could say the IQR is 4. So notice that's a smaller space than the range. If we wanted to find the range, that would be 7 minus 1. So that would be all the way from the least to the greatest. That would be 6. But the interquartile range is just the middle, so Q1 to Q3. All right, let's test it out with another data set. Let's try this one. So this one only has 4 numbers. Let's see what happens. So first, if we want to find the median, we got to think what's right in between 3 and 6. So you could probably mental math that and think, okay, those are 3 numbers apart from each other, so half of that is 1.5. So 1.5 plus 3, that would be 4.5. Or if you don't feel like mental mathing it, you could always just add these 2 numbers and divide by 2. 6 plus 3 is 9, divided by 2, that gives you the middle. So 4.5, that would be our median, which is Q2. All right, now we need to take the middle of the lower half of the data, which you got to think, okay, what's right in between 2 and 3? That's pretty easy. That would be 2.5. So that would be Q1. And then we need to take the middle of the upper half of the data, which right between 6 and 8 would be 7. So we got Q1, we got Q2, we got Q3. Now think about which numbers you would subtract to get the IQR. You would do Q3 minus Q1. So 7 minus 2.5, that would be 4.5 for the IQR. All right, let's try one more example. Let's do a longer data set this time. All right, so let's see. This time I'm going to actually cross them off so I don't miss any. So I got the lowest and the highest, second lowest, second highest, third lowest, third highest, fourth lowest, fourth highest. Notice how there's 2 numbers in the middle. So I got to go right between 10 and 11. That is 10.5. So that's Q2. That's my median. All right, then we need to split it into the upper half and the lower half. We want to include the 10 in the lower half and the 11 in the upper half. All right, so let's see. If we look right in the middle of these 5 numbers, that would be 6. So that's Q1. Right in the middle of the upper half, that would be 17. Q3. So think about what the IQR would be this time. You would do 17 minus 6. So the IQR would be 11. Alright, so that's how interquartile range works. So let's go back to the notes and fill in the steps. Whoops, let me try to erase this. I'm not sure how to make it thicker, so this is taking me a second. Alright, here we go. So the interquartile range is a measure of variability that splits the data into 4 equal quartiles. Think of the word quartile, that's 4. Quart, 4. It represents the middle 50% of the data. So basically, when you're splitting the data up into quartiles, let me show you this diagram. Oh, it's freezing on me. Give me 1 second. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, so when you're finding the quartiles, each section, each quartile is 25% of the data. So if you look at this diagram, you can see from Q1 to Q3, that's the interquartile range. That is the middle 50%. So that's half of the data in there. Alright, so in order to find interquartile range, first thing is order the data from least to greatest. Second, you want to find the median, that's Q2. Then find the median of the lower and upper quartiles, Q1 and Q3. And then you just subtract to find the IQR. You might want to make a note over here, Q3 minus Q1. That's how you get the IQR. Alright, so let's try the example. The data set below represents the different costs of cameras at Best Buy. A says write the data from least to greatest. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. So make sure you don't miss any. I'm going to cross them off as I write them. Alright, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. Question B says, what is the median price? So if you cross them off, or you can just kind of eyeball it, you can see 59 is right in the middle, because there's 3 numbers lower than that, 3 numbers higher than that. Alright, C, what is the median of the lower half of the data? So if we take these 3 numbers, we can see right in the middle, that would be 36. That's Q1. There is a typo on this one. It says, what's the median of the upper half? That's supposed to be Q3. So change that Q2 to a Q3. And then you can see that would be 71. Alright, now see if you remember what to do to find the interquartile range. All you have to do is Q3 minus Q1. I got $35. Alright, so you learned about range, you learned about interquartile range. The last thing we're going to talk about real quick is the word variability, because the range and the interquartile range are called measures of variability. So the word variability just means like how spread out the numbers are. So if a data set has a lot of variability, that means the numbers are kind of all over the place. If there's not a lot of variability, that means they're close together. So, for example, a situation that has a lot of variability might be, let's see, the number of customers at, let's just say Target, number of customers at Target each day. Because if you were to track the number of customers at Target each day, it's not going to be the same every day. There might be more, there's probably more customers on the weekend than the weekdays. It might go up and down throughout the week. You never know how many customers are going to be at Target. So that is a situation that has variability. A situation without variability might be the number of, let's say the number of months in a year. That has no variability because there's always going to be 12 months in a year. Doesn't matter if you're looking at last year, this year, next year. 1957 still has 12 months in a year. So that has no variability. So think about the examples we just filled in and see if you can answer these ones. You got to write V if it would have variability or NV if there's no variability. So number of days in a week, that's always going to be 7. So that has no variability. Number of students in each class, that totally depends. I have some classes with 25 kids, some with 32, some with 28. It's all over the place. That definitely has variability. The temperature each day, that's definitely going to be a V. It goes up and down. And the number of pens in a 12-pack. I mean, if it's a 12-pack, it should have 12 pens. No variability. And maybe every once in a while they might mess it up and give you 13 or 11, but that's not very much variability. It's usually going to be 12. Alright, so put those in the notes section of your binder. or you can keep them out to help you with the classwork. So here is what you guys are going to be doing for the rest of class. You're going to go to the Unit 10 agenda and open up the slides that are posted as today's classwork. There are 4 slides, I believe. Help yourself to whiteboards or scratch paper, because make sure you're writing all the numbers in order from least to greatest as you're working these out. After you're done with the slides, you can go to the stream page on Google Classroom, and I posted the answer key, so check your answers and see how you did. And then you can come over to the teacher's desk and ask the teacher for a homework and get started on that. And if you happen to finish everything early, remember there's a list on the whiteboard of things you can do. You could grab something from the finished folder, you could do extra practice, you could do arena time, you could do work for another class, or read a book. And if you don't finish the slides in time, just check the ones that you got done so you can see how you did so far. Alright guys, if you need any help, you can see me when I get back, but do your best for today and have a great rest of your day. See ya!